But, to kick things off, you were telling us a little bit about your background and why are you on the show? Like you said, your Instagram is pequeño, but I think we wanted you on the show.
Thanks, man.
That's what you said. That's what you said. But it's not all about that. It's about impact and influence, right? And so we're obviously impressed individually about what's going on with RV Queens. And it is a huge, we can't talk to anyone in the space without them mentioning RV Queens. Mm-hmm. So can you give us the high level view? Yeah, pound it.
Yeah, buddy.
Can you give us the high level view of how you ended up with one of the most impactful podcasts, RV Queen podcast, but also communities? How did you get here?
It's a great question. So I was born in Missouri and just kidding.
She's got jokes.
So we started RV life about a year and a half ago. And it was the first time in my life that I was like, okay, I'm going to be a homeschool mom. We're going to travel full time. That's it. And before this, I had a career it's called user experience design. I worked with software companies, and then I did consulting for a couple years after the pandemic and all this stuff. We started RVing to try to find a new city to live in. And that was our original goal. So I was like, okay, this is a slowdown period for me. My husband's going to be the breadwinner. I'm going to be very domestic, all these things. So we get on the road, and about 3 months in, we went to our first RV family event. It's through an organization called Full Time Families. And it was the first time since RVing full time that we had met other families and instead of just retired people. And the caliber of humans that we met, I was like, what? I didn't know there this community existed. And before we hit the road, I ran a women's networking group of small business owners back in Omaha.
Yeah.
For several years. So I've always been kind of passionate about that. And I could not help myself, to be honest. I was like, no one else in the RV content niche is highlighting the incredible women and just telling the stories, right? There's a lot of RV content about gear and gadgets and the logistics of living this life and travel locations. And that's cool. I love it. But I'm I just am astounded by the quality of humans we met on the road, in particular women. You have to remember that whenever you're living with your family 24/7, there's no childcare. We're with our kids constantly. There's no housekeeping service. There's no laundry service. All of these normal American, it's we're all in this doing it together. And so I decided to, first start a podcast to just highlight the stories of these incredible women that I've met. And then about 6 months ago, I started the online community so that the women could start meeting face to face. And it's just, I just love it so much. It lights me up big time, just meeting and connecting with all these incredible women.
Yeah. And do you have how do you measure the size of the community? There's lots of ways to measure a community, but how many women are actively engaged or how many members are in the community? How are you measuring the community in any way?
Sure. Well, I mean, podcast subscribers are one thing, but then the actual engaged online community we've created has 70 members about.
Cool.
As of this month, after just launching last October. And it's unique because it's called the Marco Polo app. If you're not familiar, it's really similar to video texting. And so you just have a little lineup of women, looking at the video, talking about their lives. We do a weekly topic. It is specifically for women that are starting, building, growing businesses while living RV life. And it's extremely engaged to the point that I have a hard time keeping up with everyone.
Very active. It's a very
Yes.
active, yes, very active group.
Yeah, and
And
Nicole,
so
you're in
is
the
it full
group
time
too,
for
though.
you?
It's a lot.
Is it full time for you?
No, no, my number one gig is still homeschool mom and,
Okay.
RVer, which is like
Well,
a whole
yeah.
category of like, dude, travel planning, figuring out, it kind of gets you back to the basics of like, we need food, and clean water and a place to be,
Mhm.
a place
Yeah,
to stay.
buddy.
And
So
Kate, you
yeah,
seem like you've been very intentional with the members that it's a community-led group. So
Mhm.
like they rely on each other, they talk amongst each other to, and I think that's part of the reason why it continues to be so engaged, right? Because they really all have, like you said, so many different like skills and experiences that they bring to the table, and you're like, whoa, I didn't realize about that person.
right.
So yeah,
That's
I
right.
like that, and I think it kind of takes some of the weight off you too, because they're like, I don't know, you would need a team to run 70 members, like
Oh,
right,
Right.
like to be moderating and all that other thing. It's like you guys are grown women, you can do it, and it's been great.
yeah.
You know,
That's right. I went into it like I just want to gather women and facilitate them supporting each other and getting to know each other, and it's really about like the connection of number 1 living this extremely unique lifestyle. Number 2, oh yeah, you're trying to run a business on top of all this.
Mhm.
So just those two things alone, um just connecting with other humans that are doing the exact same thing as you.
Mm.
I'm not the expert at either of those things, RVing or growing businesses. So I call it a community-led community where we are here to get to know each other, number 1, and then number 2, to support each other and to learn and grow together.
Mm.
And
Is that a
that's
term
how
that
I
you
fit
made
into
up,
it.
or did you learn that in your corporate days of
The
women? Yeah,
community-led community.
yes.
I don't think I made it up. When I am like a researcher type gal. So whenever I was going to start this community, I did some deep diving into like, okay, what are the types of online communities there
Yeah.
are? And how can this best work for full-time travel women? And obviously one model of online community that you see a lot is an education-led community. That's not what this is. I don't have a course connected to this yet.
Mm.
Yeah.
I don't have,
Ditto. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I don't, like I don't have education materials to walk people through in a sequential pattern, nothing like that. Then you have just community for networking sake, and that's really where I fall. There's probably other types of communities online that I'm forgetting too, but those are the two main ones that I've seen, and I picked my
Mm.
lane.
Yeah. Yeah.
What mistakes did you make early? You've been at this 6 months, so it's still all early, but what were some of the earliest challenges you had or mistakes you made in building a community that either you quickly adjusted to or you wouldn't do over?
Oh man. Off the top, the first thing that comes to mind is I started out with 2 tiers in
Mm.
the RV Queen circles. There was like a lower tier, it was like $10 a month, and it was for just any RV woman who wanted to jump on and connect with other RV women. And then the higher paid tier was for women who were starting and running businesses and also living RV life. From the start, the business focused group was like booming, very active, very engaged. And the, RV women just liking to connect, it was like I felt like I was having to actively be like,
Mhm.
and also, what about you? Like pulling
Mhm.
teeth to have the conversation.
Yeah.
Because I think there wasn't a topic, it's like
Right.
you can only talk about yourself for so long. So that was a big learning for me. Like, okay, like I could sit there and talk on Marco Polo with other RV women all day. Let's just like start feeding what's thriving and grow
Interesting.
that. So I actually, just last month I decided to close down that lower tier, but 90% of the women actually bumped up to the higher tier and they're still active and engaged.
Yeah.
I think they didn't realize like, oh, this is how this is how we should be connecting and getting to know each
Yeah.
other. So
That's
that
big.
was
Yeah.
yeah. I don't
That's
know if I would
big.
call that a mistake, but it was like
No,
No.
it was
it's
a
more
learning.
just like a learning, like you
Yeah.
have to, you're learning your people and how they're going to respond inside the group. And I think having a common thread, like I'm a content creator, I'm trying to build a business,
Yeah.
immediately gets them in that conversation. And it's like, everything is just testing. And you don't know
Yeah.
like what's going to happen. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. And so then, but has the podcast been going on this entire time? And let them know to find us on YouTube too, because
Okay.
that shot stinks. Like, I mean, it does. It's like this high angle, and
Yeah,
I
but
feel
this-
bad.
this
This
is-
is a good shot.
okay.
What was I asking there?
We're on YouTube.
What?
We're on YouTube. It's on yours.
Oh yeah, good luck on that. Yeah.
State of the Spark.
And so you've been doing the podcast the entire 6 months?
Yep, I've been doing the podcast for a full year, and then
year?
6 months in, I started the online community to kind of go with it.
And you said you're in season 5?
Yeah, you know, the like seasons when you do your own podcast, you get to pick what that means. So
You're like, I took a break for a month and I went back. So that's season 1.
well, like I guess I mean like some seasons are like 10 episodes. Some seasons are like 14 episodes. So
Yeah.
it's been, you know, we'll see. But I have been up until last week, I have consistently posted a podcast episode once a week,
Wow.
which for people
That's
that create podcasts, you know,
Yes.
it's a lot.
It's hard to
behind
get
the
everything
scenes.
edited and published
Yeah.
out that
Yeah.
fast. Yeah.
So, yeah, I've been proud of myself. I'm also proud of myself for taking a break and not being such a perfectionist. Like,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, Kate, you can take a couple weeks off. Everyone's going to survive. It's fine.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So the podcast has been going on. What are some? Were you podcasting before?
Yeah. Is this brand new to you? Was this like your first time
Oh,
podcasting?
man. Yes. I am not a like someone who loves to be in front of a camera. I
What?
don't even like to be on stage. You have to remember, like, I'm a designer. That was my career for like 15 years was me behind the scenes, helping someone else's brand, helping someone else's business like look good and run well and market themselves well. So running a podcast and like having it be my face and my voice,
Yeah.
it is interview based. So luckily it's not just me talking the whole time. It was very uncomfortable, but I'm like a lifelong learner. I love
Yeah.
learning new skills. I wake up and it's exciting to me. So, it's been a lot of lessons learned, but a lot of fun along the way too.
What's your subscriber count to on the podcast now? Ish.
I think we're up to about 12,000.
Oh
What?
my gosh. Kate, that's
Oh,
great.
what?
That's amazing.
That's not pequeño.
No.
That's grande.
Look at you.
I didn't even know like a baseline. So I'm like,
That sounds good.
Like-
I'm with you. I would have been like 5,000. Amazing.
That's easily
12
Joe Rogan size, right? That's about Joe
oh my
Rogan.
gosh, stop. I'm just happy that people are listening. Like, I'm like an experimental type business owner. I'm like, okay, let's just see if this works for a while. If the
Yeah.
podcast was like 50 listeners,
Yeah.
I'd be like maybe move on to something else. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, people are listening. It's growing every month. Let's keep going with it. Seems like a good thing.
Yeah, man.
Do you get to like collect emails from subscribers, or are they just like, are subscribers from podcasts just like, that's not that's not an email list you can tap. Like there's not even
But
an
she
email
can-
involved.
But
right?
she can retarget that. It's all Spotify, right?
Right. Yeah. I go through Spotify. I have not figured out how to do that. If people can,
I didn't even know if you
because-
could, but that's like the first thing I think of. I'm like, oh, that's 12,000 people's ears you have. Like,
Right.
What do you do? You know?
Yeah. But I mean, you can. I do have sponsors for the podcast, but then I can drop in my own. You know, whenever I open up the community for new members, which is usually once a month, like I drop a little podcast ad in there
Yeah.
real quick to promote that.
Mhm.
So
Have you
that's
had
the
anybody
only thing I
ask
have
that's
of it.
not in the RV community to be in the community? I mean, besides like me, I'm like, can I come in? I have a travel trailer.
That's to be on the podcast.
No, to be part of the RV Queens community. Has anybody who's not an RV person asked to be in the community? Maybe from hearing it on your podcast or just kind of like liking what you're doing.
I don't think so. There have been a couple times that this might be a touchy subject. I don't know if I should go here.
Please. We like touchy.
There have been a couple times, like whenever women sign up for the community, it's like your name and your billing info is like all wrapped up in the subscription, right?
Yeah.
So I think some people don't realize when information, that's what shows up on my end as a community member. So some women use their husband's name because it's like connected with the credit card. And I'm like, oh, really, dude? Like, I'm just like, isn't it clear this is for women? And I'll go on there. And then after a little digging, I'm like, oh, it's fine. But
okay, Rick, thanks for trying to sneak into the community.
And I'll go find their Instagram and be like, I'm guessing this is Stephanie that wants to be in and not Rick. So, but nothing crazy. No one trying to interlope.
Interlopers.
We have a couple people saying hello. The Adventure Box is saying hi.
Hi.
Emma, Kristen, Joe Jensen.
Roman with the Smiths.
Yeah.
And for anyone joining us on LinkedIn Live, if you want to see Kate's side of this, you can join us on LinkedIn. We're on LinkedIn Live. We're on Facebook Live right now. Jump over, follow HotMod, and jump over there for the rest of the interview or check in for the replay. So, like if you have anything to launch, you can announce it as sponsorship. Mm-hmm. My question on sponsorship was, how soon into your journey as a podcaster were you looking for or did you go looking for sponsors?
Oh, Grant. Remember when I said that I was like an experimenter? So I started a podcast and I was like, I don't know how any of this works. How do people get sponsors? I'm not going to worry about that right now. But what I did do, and this is like something other content creators I think can learn maybe, is so I had our personal RV life focused Instagram account. And you get messages on there like, will you promote this product and collab with us and all this stuff. So my first sponsor was actually a DM from a company. I'll say it was Elikai. If you listen to the podcast, you'll know. They messaged our personal account and I was like, hey, I actually run a podcast for women and I bet you would want your product in front of RV women, right? Because they all hold the pocketbooks. We know what's going on here. And so they're like, yes, that would be great. So that was like, oh, they said yes. How much do I charge for a podcast? Then I was like, who do I know that runs a podcast that can help me figure out how much to charge? How this goes. So that was kind of like a happy accident / intentionally.
We took you took it opportunity. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think that's genius. I love it.
Yeah, I like that. And so that's been consistent. And now that you kind of fumbled through that, like, did you build systems around it? But are you still just like playing fast and loose with like, I'll take collabs, let's roll? Or do you have a system for it?
I do have a system for it. I mean, technically podcast ads are priced around like number of listeners,
right?
And so there are like some best practices that I can like base the price off of. But learning from my content creator gurus such as yourself, I quickly learned like, oh yeah, you can just sponsor ads if you want, or I can also create a reel and stories and you like, what else do you need? And like try to package it up into like a more more. What do you want? You want to be on YouTube? Cool. I got a YouTube channel. Let's do some video ads. Yeah. So I definitely have like a baseline and then, we stack it on from there.
What is the most surprising aspect of this journey? You make it sound like you fumbled your way through this. Like, I'm still just figuring it out. I'm not exactly drunk, but I might as well be. I mean,
You probably feel that way when you're like, you're wearing all the hats. Like
Yeah.
you were saying, you're a mom and you're homeschooling and you have a husband and you're like, got to find water and food. Like,
Yeah.
like,
Right.
and then you're running a business. It does feel like you are just fumbling through some of this stuff because you're tired and you're working all the time.
but there has to be
Right.
something amazing going. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, you have to remember, like, I'm not a 20-year-old. I've been a professional for over.
Yep.
I mean, I don't even want to say the number of years. So whenever it's like, whenever a brand came to me and said, "Will you put together a proposal?" I was like, "Yeah, got it." Like I've
Yeah.
done that a bunch.
Right.
Or name your thing. There's an issue that comes up with a community member's payment, and I'm like, no problem. Like just it's not a big deal. Like a lot of like the business problems that I've come up against, I'm like, okay, I've done this before.
Yeah.
There was a point in my life where I was raising funds for a startup, and I would pitch to these like very wealthy investors. Like I've
Okay.
presented to people who have a lot of money before. Like I know how this works. So there's a lot of tasks and things that have come up from running a podcast, running a community, all these things. And I'm like, okay, fine, I got this.
That's
It's
good.
a problem. Any business you run is going to have problems, but it doesn't feel like this mountain of an issue that it probably would have like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. You build up your skill
it's-
sets working in doing what you've done. Like your work
Yeah.
experience comes in
Yeah.
to play. And so,
Yeah.
you
Right.
can, exactly.
And
Yeah,
to
I mean,
your
'cause when
point, Grant,
No, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Like I am lighthearted about this. It's not lighthearted. It's like I hold the business with an open palm is how I see it,
Mhm.
because I make a podcast for RV women. Like I'm running an online community for women. Like it's not serious. Like I've worked on serious things before. I can't go into it, but like working with like government technology platforms and like stuff like that when I was a UX designer. So like I've worked on really serious things before. This is not serious. Like it's okay. Everything's everything's gonna be all
And
right.
that's a relief in itself. Like that creates that freedom to just have an open heart
Yeah.
and be open to your community too, because you can kind of ebb and flow as they grow with you.
Right.
But also your household, let me ask, this is actually a question, and we don't have to talk about hard numbers, but does your household depend on the success of RV Queens?
Exactly. No, it does not. And my career before this did. So that's probably also why I took that career like way more seriously. And this one I'm like, yeah, cool.
Because
Yeah.
a lot of the young creators that we're learning, and I'm sure you see something similar, is it is serious business, because they're viewing it, most of the creators, maybe you could correct me if I'm wrong, feel like it's make or break. Nearly every coaching call that Nicole or I take with a creator, they're like, listen, our numbers are down and this is our bread and butter. And we've got to do something. And I think that creates an anxiety that they bring into the systems, that they bring into the sales, that they bring into the brainstorming for solutions. And it makes it really difficult to think, and come up with more playful solutions, which I think the world responds better to, solutions that are more playful and engaging. So I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think over the years, working with different coaching clients, there are some where it's a very serious matter because they are trying to create a supplemental income because their husband lost their job, and then like kind of see it as in a different light, and they take it more serious, but it does start from the beginning as like a stressor, as opposed to like, hey, everybody's having fun, I should try this too, and I can make a couple dollars. So I guess you can't ever tell where somebody is, and we're going to run into all different types of people, but I think that's why we're so strong about the education portion of it, because it's the same process, no matter who you are and where you are in the journey, to set up a business, to start taking your content creation journey seriously, but it just depends on the person and where they are and what kind of stress they're bringing to it, because I think it's because yesterday we had a call with somebody who was kind of freaking out because they had a really successful YouTube channel
Yes.
about a very specific niche, and they were bringing in the AdSense dollars, right? And then they switched over from that content to a new content, the RV content, and their views were down, so they were making less money. And they're like, how do we get more money? And I'm like, you're in a totally different niche now. You will never be able to recreate this. To that extent, you will grow, but you're on YouTube, man. You're talking years, so you just already should know that.
Right.
They got instant success on YouTube, and I think that messed with their head a little bit because most people do not get instant success on YouTube. But anyway, we see, and I'm sure you hear this too with RV queens, right? When you interview and you actually hear their story, the way they feel about content is all over the board. Have you found that in your interviews? Or do you usually talk about content creation? Is
content?
How they feel about being on social media as a way to share their journey and also create an income. Do you ever dive into that with any of your interviewees, or does it just depend on what they want to talk about?
Yeah, I have gone into that topic with several, and I think what you're hitting on is like one of the hardest parts of being a business owner and a human living in the Western world, right?
Yeah.
It's the balance of like, I need money to live.
Yeah.
And also like keeping your energy right and like open.
Yes.
And just real quick, and then I'll get into your question about content is for me, I let myself go down to, and me and my husband have these conversations a lot. Let's just, if no more money comes in and like things are dire, what's our life going to look like? Hey, guess what? We're going to get jobs. We're going to rent an apartment. Like we live in a tiny space. It'll be fine. Just let our minds go there. Like we are safe. Everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Instantly, like, it's okay. That like
you're making Grant draw a breath right now. He's like meditating. Yeah.
I love it.
It's not going to be the end of the world. No. We're all still healthy. We're still alive. Okay. Baseline. We're good. Now let's operate our business and coming up with strategies based on the input right at hand. So I've been learning that over the past decade. That's not something that's like a quick thing to learn. Like managing where your mindset is. I do not like operating out of stress. I do not like operating out of lack. And so I'm always trying to set myself up for like, get the mind right. I'm not going to operate out of that feeling anymore because I did that for a really long time.
Right.
Not good for anyone. Okay. So to answer your question about content, I think what you're asking for, maybe I'm wrong, is like the approach that different RV women take to creating content.
Yeah. Have you noticed the variety of different outlooks that end up coming up in the conversations about being a content creator and making money on the road? Yeah. Yes.
Well, I think everyone that I've talked to kind of starts in the same place that a lot of content creators do, is like, yeah, I think I could like take some photos and videos. Let's figure out how to make money with this. And then it's like a learning process where it's like, okay, if I really want to make money with this, I need to be really specific on what I'm creating and the value that I'm adding. So let's take, for example, Sandy Phelan, because she's an easy one. She's been on the podcast. We're friends. We've camped together, all this stuff. They were like professional videographers, right? Like they knew what they were doing with video, but it wasn't until they were like, hey, our vibe has to be the same every time we're on camera. This is what we're doing with our, right? It's like face front. I'm just doing one take. They're going to be short, 15 seconds. Like they were very specific about, here's what I'm creating. It's for entertainment. It's to inspire people, like they have their brand pillars in there. And then they just pumped out the content based on that, strategy that they had in place. And that's the pattern that I've seen over and over. It's like, I could do this. And then you're like, oh, like I have to I gotta
figure some stuff out.
guys what I'm doing here, don't I?
Yeah.
I can't just like throw some spaghetti against Instagram and see some money come out. So
Sure.
that would be the most frequent pattern.
It's very spot on. That is exactly that's exactly the process. And I think there's a realization too that like it's a soul searching process.
Yeah.
It's a wow, this is harder than I thought it was going to be.
Yep.
Shift, and then they decide if they want to sit on it for a little while and try to figure it out. And then I feel like by the time I end up coaching with them, they've waited or sat for a little while, and now they're feeling ready to kind of get their messaging and stuff like on point. But it's such a like soul searching process. We really think it's like a discovery of self. And then deciding like, cause you have to ask yourself, like you said, like, what is my tagline? What is my mantra? What is my brand? And a lot of times in the beginning, you're so far, like you don't have a brand for your regular life. You just are living your life. Right. And then all of a sudden you have to be so intentional about colors.
Yeah, just
colors.
fonts,
Like who am I? You know, it's a great process to be a part of, honestly.
I think there's 3 major phases that it sounded like you described. And, I have a strong personal development coaching background and entrepreneur coaching background, and it's often performance coaching. And what you're describing about content is actually just sounds like the entrepreneur journey. You start naively, and the naivete is what gets you going. And you're like, this is going to be easy. I just get on here and talk. And so you get out there and talk, and you're like, I'm awesome. And then you're like, wait a minute, this takes more than I thought. And there's a whole wave of people that quit there. But those who don't, they start adding to. Their philosophy is let me add to, let me get the equipment, let me do all the different angles, all the different shots, and they just keep adding. And then there's some success with that. And then there's another wave where they're like, this is going to take a lot more than I thought. And then at that moment, the methodology becomes cutting away, but tactically. And that tactical cutting away comes from experience now. And so now they're the Sandy and Jimmy where they're like, yeah, we have all this equipment. And yes, we could do all the shots, but we're going to do the head-on shots. Yes, we could do, the single shot, or we could do all the cutaways. And some of that's an entrepreneur solving for editing later, like efficiency,
Right.
but also knowing brand. And so now they're bringing this level of expertise that only comes from experience. That literally is describing the entrepreneur journey, which is all that to say why I have loved the RV and travel creators specifically, because they kind of have that early entrepreneur naivete, as opposed to like other influencers who come into the space. They come in and they know they're trying to make coin. They know it's a business. They might not treat it like a business, but they know that's what they're trying to do. The RVers have this purist thing about them. It feels like when they come to it, they're like, I'm just here. Like I think of Llama Llama Lee.
I want to inspire people to travel.
Yeah.
It's like usually a long week in time. I'm like, okay, well, we got to get a little more dialed down than that. Like what's going on in your life?
And then they come up for air, and now they're too far in it to turn away, and they see the impact they're making in people's lives, and they see the potential. They come up there and realize this is a real business, but they're down for it because they've been at it for a minute. So this whole community is really endeared me a lot, because it's like they're accidental entrepreneurs, like what? I wouldn't have signed up for this if I knew,
That's a good way to put it.
Right. Oh man. Well, and the other thing is like our viewers just want freedom. Like they got into this life because they don't want to be tied to a house and to a 9-to-5 and to all these things. And so like, oh, I can create content. Yeah, I can do that every day. I'm seeing beautiful sights, and going to the beach and whatever. You're totally right. Oh, this is like strategy and business. I'm running a B2B business right now. Okay, well, looks like I need to learn some negotiation tactics, so you're totally right.
So we're at the time we committed to you. What is the best way for people to follow you? What's your Spotify? How do people find RV Queens podcast?
Yes, RV Queens podcast is on, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. What are you into? iHeartRadio? Cool. Yeah. We're there. I can't even think of all of them. We're on all of the podcast platforms. Instagram is the only social media account where I have RV Queens podcast specific content. And YouTube. Sorry. I always forget about YouTube's social media technically. And the website, rvqueenspodcast.com. If you would like to get on the wait list for our next new member opening, you can go to the website and find it there.
And then you have some exciting interviews coming up. You've got Jen Bethune from Being Bethunes. And then you've got Nina from Sidewalker Daily. When do those drop?
Right. Yes. So next Monday is the launch of season 5. It's also like our 1-year anniversary of the podcast. So we have Jen Bethune's episode next Monday. The following week is Nina from Sidewalker Daily. And I mean, I've got a great lineup that I don't want to.
Don't share.
Yeah. But seriously, subscribe. We've got a great season coming up.
Awesome. Great. Dude, Kate, thank you so much for making the time today. Stick around real quick. We'll be right with you. Nicole, what did you learn from Kate today?
She's even more awesome every time I talk to her.
We did. We had the honor to like hang with her and talk with her the last few weeks off and on. And it's
I'm kicking myself because she was at the Tampa RV show and we didn't spend.
Kick yourself. You didn't say boo about it.
I know. We like met briefly and then we didn't get to hang, but we were like always on a mission and like on to the next. And then we had Corey, and so we had a lot of things. But I'm like, I just wish there was more time, which is why I'm like, we just need to go to one of their rallies.
Yeah.
And like, like what is it? Not photobomb, but when you go to a party and
wedding crash.
Yeah, we need to be wedding crashers, rally crashers.
Or as Kate called it earlier, I would be interloping for that for sure. So real quick before we set you guys off, you're an actual not a guest, you're a member of RV Queens. From the members' view, what are some of the value you've gotten out of it?
How open everybody is about their experience with whether it's working with brands or like products that they use. I mean, I feel like the community is very vulnerable and really truly has their heart in it. And these women, the other day I heard them say, like, you're not allowed to say I'm sorry, because one of the moms was like, I'm sorry, my kids. And she's like, you're not allowed to say I'm sorry in this group because we all get it. And so I love that whole like culture that they're building.
That vibe. So please check out Kate, check out RV Queens Podcast for sure. Check out rvqueenspodcast.com so that you pay attention to the open enrollment. It's not always open, so you want to make sure you catch some of those windows when they open again. They're taking a hiatus in May, but after that, pay attention, because if you want to be part of a thriving community that's supporting awesome women in the RV and travel space and maybe interlopers who are not, then you can by all means check them out there. Thank you so much. We'll be back next week with the HotSpark Show.
Yep.